Right now, we will broadcast for you the news in English on Radio Free Syria.
Welcome, dear listener. Greet you from Radio Free Syria and offer you our newsletters. You, Mohammad Al-Ahmad. Damascus. Army managed to free from Adnan barrier liberalization in Jobar neighborhood centered on South Al-Mutahalliq road, where he was able to damage the tank. Reportedly, aviation bombed Jobar Zamalka South Al-Mutahalliq road that resulted in the deaths of 3 people. The neighborhood saw flowers combine of raids and searches as regime forces shelled artillery in neighborhood October. Clashes erupted at the entrance to the Yarmouk Rifaq camp in the central target system sniper position on the War al-Barjat there. In the countryside hit the cities of Daraya and Al-Mu'adamiyya to heavy shelling with heavy artillery and rocket launchers aimed clashes at the western side of the city, which is experiencing a siege more than 2 months ago. Shelling continues also on most eastern towns Ghouta and focus in Erbil, Harasta and in Terma, destroying a number of houses. And in Kalamon, bombed for Sannabak regime and Yabrud mortar and rocket launchers aimed continuing a battle events. It also shelling the city of Zabadani and several villages in the valley of the Barada, with capacity to violence clash between the army and the free regime forces in the outskirts of the town on the road to Akraba. Damascus International Airport aimed the bombing, including Akraba and Aspina. Now Dar'a in the cradle of the revolution took place clash between the army and the free regime forces in the town of Said Silk Dar'a, what has killed a number of regime forces. At the same time, forces shell systems stationed in the 2nd Brigade 50 town battalion, resulting casualties. Shelling also hit revival shelled the country. Also took place in Busra, Sham. Clashes aimed shelling spears over the city and saw the town Al-Kahil liberated, with exposed town of Al-Yaduda and An'ima to bomb launchers, rocket and mortars. This caused the wounded and led to the destruction of the large houses. Hama in the center of the country, according to the Revolution General Commission for dropping the Free Syrian Army aircraft in Kafr and Buda, brave Hama were bombing civilians in the city, while the 2 women sighted in the village Ashab by artillery shelling and rocket launchers. In Karnaz, regime forces burned dozens of homes and agriculture vehicles were stolen after storming in the town. Also stormed the well villages Al-Hammamiyat and Forhid. Homs stay in the center of the country, where she was besieged. Homs neighborhood artillery and rocket launchers and focus bombardment and the door of the hood and door damage and orchard. Rol and Jurt al-Shayyah and Al-Qarabis also fell martyrs and wounded in the short after mortar and artillery bombardment. Megs also launched air raids and civilian Rastan, Bin Hawla and Tilbisa for artillery and mortar shells, resulting in injuries and significant damage to building houses. In the north of Aleppo, Free Military announced the start of the Battle of Liberate Airport. Military queries cited a family of 4 people in the neighborhood houses or housing Hanano, as regime forces shelled neighborhood through the Bab and Bani Zaid and Aghyar and Al-Maysar behind the destruction of the houses. This came in conjunction with the renewed clash between the army and the free regime forces at the Battle of the Sincerity Sheikh Said. In the countryside, Sham News Network reported that the Free Army confronted military convoy and destroyed 2 tanks in the town of Tel Iran, was heading to the Defense Labs ambassador, as well as the similar circuits clashes between the Army Free and gangs Assad in military perimeter queries airport. In the countryside, several towns, Anadan and Hritan, lifted heavy artillery and rocket launchers, while still fighting in a circle on the peripheral airport Ming wa Nairab military, and landed a number of martyrs and wounded by artillery shell landed near the compound of the school in the district of Ambassador. Idlib, we stay in the north. Regime forces bombarded with heavy artillery and rocket launcher city Binish and Ma'arrat Masrin in Idlib, and the village of Jabal corner of indiscriminate bombing of Barir, So, Mhambil and Ma'arra and Kafaruma continue intensive bombing various heavy weapons by gangs Lion City, by gangs Al-Assad, in conjunction with the continued fighting in the vicinity of the camps and Gast Valley and Al-Hamidiyya. Helicopters delivered barrels of explosives at the vacancy bridge countryside location of those killed and wounded. Latakia. In the countryside of Latakia, system barrels aircraft dropped ordnance on civilians in the resort of Selma, resulted in casualties where also the village Dwerka, Akko and Nahshaya in Jabal al-Akrad shelled with heavy artillery and rocket launchers. George Sabra politically visited the president of the National Council, George Sabra, areas in rural Aleppo and Idlib, and toured in several places, combined by elements of the Army Free. Their use against people in Aleppo and don't against Israel in Golan front, Jolan. The president of the council stresses that all spectrums of the Syrian people will end dictatorship through cooperation with each other. New York Times. So the New York Times that the infringement conducted by the Prime Minister Syrian regime as a desperate attempt aimed at supporting the country's economy, cracking by the battle between the army and the free regime forces. The newspaper pointed out that American Bashar Assad focused amended to 7 ministers as possible involved in the country's economy. And newspaper highlighted the damage caused by regime forces in the Syria cities, pointed out that most of the major industries in the country have stopped, as well as power outages on the ongoing basis. In addition to the bread and fuel crisis, the newspaper said closing major airports in the country and falling exchange rate of the Syria pound. Finally, أحرار note بديعوت أحرار note this newspaper of the Israel occupation in the today's edition that the implementation of the Syrian attack is a matter of time given the state of tension and anticipation witnesses by the situation on the Syrian-Israel border after the airstrike on Damascus. The newspaper quoted sources in the Israel army by he trended on the war front of the Syria army, but the Syria response may be a day or a month or two through individual case through an explosion at the border or in a Lebanese village or in Nablus. Noting that fear Israel is not limited to troops system but a jihadiyin who infiltrated into Syria and working under the suspicions of Al-Qaeda in Syria terrority by newspaper description. It is noteworthy that the accused Israel occupation implementation read on Center for Scientific Research in Jamraya rural Damascus a few days ago, which denied by the Syrian Revolution General confirmed that the system is officially the center in an attempt to divert attention from what the massacres and violations against the Syrian people. And we got you, dear listener, to the end of the daily bulletin we have provided to you via Radio Free Syria. Was with you Mohammad Al-Ahmad with regards of Islam al-Idlibi and direction.
Right now, we will broadcast for you the news in English on Radio Free Syria.